Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you? Good.
So I have lots of questions, but I know you won't be able to answer all the spoilery stuff. England.
Okay, great.
From France. Jersey.
Right on. Okay, great.
Can you tell us a little bit about the new characters coming in this season?
Yeah. So throughout season 2, we will meet a variety of new characters that will intersect our ensemble's lives in different directions. So starting with Michaela, she's a new boss at work, a new police captain who is a hard ass. One of the storylines that we follow in season 1 is that Michaela is making all of these seemingly impossible solves because she has these voices and visions in her head that have allowed her to solve a bunch of crimes. Doesn't really make sense. She's had to kind of cover her tracks with the police department. As a result, they got rid of the old boss, and the precinct brought in a new boss. She's a real hard ass and is really on to Michaela, and that makes Michaela's police work even harder. So that's Captain Bowers. There are a couple other characters that we meet in romantic stories. Olive is going to have a romantic interest. She's going to meet this guy named TJ. He was a passenger on the flight. He is a college kid and going through a lot of the same drama that the Stone family is going through, but his parents are gone. He's all alone, and he's kind of taken in by the Stone family, and he and Olive really hit it off. And we'll discover that young Olive actually glimpsed this guy in the airport 5.5 years ago and never forgot about him. It's actually a really sweet story. We're going to meet a woman at a local bar who is part of or affiliated with these group of Xers, these bad guys. It's a hate group that they're very suspicious of the passengers, and they're not sure if they're human, and they don't trust them. And we established in this group in season 1, there's these two groups who are obsessed with the passengers. A hate group and a group that kind of like thinks that they're literally the second coming. And so on the hate group side, we meet this woman named Tamara. She's a bartender, and she gets together with one of our characters. I'm not going to mention who. And her brother is this guy named Billy, and he's a really bad guy, and that story goes pretty dark. And then on the other side, Olive falls in with the Church of the Believers. So that's the group who thinks that there's some religious explanation to everything that's happening. And Olive's so frustrated with everything that's going on, so fearful that her family's going to die, is looking for answers. And she's like a lost teenager, and so she falls in with this church looking for answers. And that takes her down like a tricky, dark spiral. There's a character named Maxine, another young woman who befriends Olive and kind of brings her into the crowd. And this isn't a brand new character, but we met a guy last year, a passenger named Adrian from the plane, and he is the person who creates this church. We saw him for a little bit at the end of the season. He had a small gathering, and they were having a prayer circle. That's become a big deal, and he becomes kind of a darker tinged antagonist, and Ben is really obsessed with the damage that this guy is going to cause in all of their lives. So anyway, that's a smattering of some of the big things.
So last season ended with them finding out that they're going to die, that they're all going to die at the same time. Is this going to be the big mystery for the second season, or does this just kickstart us into a whole new mystery?
Right, so I guess a little bit of both. So season 2 is very much focused on this idea of the death date. That was kind of the big reveal of the season 1 finale. And so now we come into season 2 with all of the passengers thinking, well, we may only have 5.5 years to live. What does that mean, right? So for Ben and Michaela are kind of lead investigators, if you will, trying to solve this mystery. First and foremost, they're concerned with this idea of the death date. Is it written in stone? Is there a workaround? Can it be undone? And if it can be undone, is it going to be through these voices and visions they're hearing in their head? Is there some scientific explanation? And so for a lot of season 2, Parveen's character, Sanvi, is continuing her scientific experimentation to try to understand, is there something physiologically different about us all? And we started that in season 1. and she'll get further along in that inquiry. And in the meantime, Ben and Michaela are trying to figure out, okay, well, what if this doesn't have anything to do with the science of our body? What if the death date is somehow tied in to these voices and visions? Is how we respond to them going to affect whether we live or die? And then, of course, there's the related question: how does this connect to the airplane? And why this airplane? Why did it disappear? Why did it come back? We'll service all of this in the second season. By the time you get to the end of the second season, the audience will understand a lot more about the death date, and by the very end of the season, we'll start to understand more about the airplane itself.
For fan reactions, how much does that play a part in the role of writing the show? With Grace kind of wasn't exactly a fan favorite to start out, and midway through, people started to understand where she was coming from.
I have a pretty detailed roadmap for how the show works every season. I admit that I certainly pay attention to online reactions because I think it's interesting. That doesn't affect the storyline because the storyline kind of is what it is, and I'm going to stick with my game plan. I wasn't surprised that the audience had a largely negative reaction to some of the choices that Grace was making throughout season 1. By nature, her character is an outsider. She wasn't on the airplane. She didn't relate emotionally to the journey that the characters were going through. And yet I felt that her reactions were grounded, and I stand by her reactions. And the fact that a lot of people were kind of hating on her, I think, is understandable, but the story still needed to play out. And I think that a lot of the people who weren't on board with Grace in season 1 are going to make a categorical turn with her in season 2 for a reason that I will not reveal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Nice talking to you.